Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Monday, September 11th, 2023. It's about 20 after 10 in the morning, so it's a bit later in the day for one of my behind the scenes videos than normal. I usually shoot these as soon as I wake up in the morning, which is why I often look a little bit disheveled with giant bags under my eyes and I'm not quite awake yet. I'm not saying I'm not looking disheveled with giant bags under my eyes. I probably look exactly the same, but I feel a little bit more awake than I normally do. And instead of drinking instant coffee, I am drinking ultra milk. I love milk. Yes, it's always kind of a funny milk experience though. I don't really understand it, I guess. You've got this milk from, I mean, it comes from places like New Zealand, and then when you read the ingredients or the details about it, it says that it is made from milk. So I think what happens, maybe this is common knowledge, but it isn't to me, but I think what happens is the milk is produced in places like New Zealand, where there are a lot of dairy farms and lots of grass. And then the milk is dehydrated. All the liquid is sucked out of it, so you end up with a milk powder or a milk cream, like a condensed form, and then that is shipped to other countries around the world, and then they rehydrate it and then package it. And then when I buy this in the stores, I feel like I'm buying milk, like straight from the cow, basically, like fresh milk. That's what it tastes like to me. And that's what the texture is like, you know, the consistency. But I think it is dehydrated or like rehydrated. Otherwise, yeah, it would cost a fortune to take milk from New Zealand, like liquid milk, which is quite heavy, and ship it all the way to countries like Indonesia, and then keep it fresh and drinkable all that time. So I think it's shipped in a powder form, and then they put the liquid back in. I think that's how it works. But anyway, it's still it still tastes good to me. And for whatever reason, my body just loves this stuff. I could live on it. You know, I would live on it if I could. So what's been going on? I'm in a new place. I'm back in Dumai, the coastal town in Riau province. And I'm in Dumai because this is where the ferry departs from, the ferry that goes back to Malaysia. And in fact, I'm getting on the ferry tomorrow morning. My ferry leaves at 11 a.m. from the dock here, and is taking me to Port Dickson in Malaysia. And I'm in a hotel here in Dumai. Quite a nice place for me. It's a low budget hotel. It costs about $10 US per night. And it's a large room, like 20 square meters, has air conditioning, Wi-Fi, a little bit of furniture, 2 single beds, bathroom. It even has hot water in the bathroom, which is pretty amazing. And I chose this hotel partially because the hotel I wanted to stay in was booked. It was fully booked. There were no rooms available. So I ended up here, and I'm kind of glad that I did, because this is a bit of a step up in terms of comfort and cleanliness and organization compared to my usual place here in Dumai. My usual place in Dumai, I talked about it before, it's like an old classic hotel, quite an old one that has left behind its glory days. But I kind of like hotels like that because they have old furniture, like big, heavy, clunky furniture, big rooms. It's like an older hotel in terms of its skeleton, you know, in terms of its structure. But it was overrun with cockroaches. And you know, I don't mind sharing my living space with a little bit of cockroach action. You know, they're everywhere. It's like if you're in a room like this and you don't see any cockroaches, well, they're still here. They are here. They're in every room you've ever been in when you live the low budget life, you know. But in some places, like this hotel where I used to stay in Dumai, they came out in the open, so they were sort of everywhere. And to be honest, being here, it's kind of nice not to have, because they're the big ones. You know, I'm not talking about little baby cockroaches running around. These are the big Asian ones. You know, when they land on you or crawl on you, you feel it. It feels like a heavy animal is moving around. They're big. And they're also very courageous. Like, I think of cockroaches in Canada, they hide. They're very timid. You know, you make a little bit of a noise and whoosh, they all run for hiding spots. These big ones in Asia, they're brazen. They just stay out in the open. So if you see one out in your room, it's claimed that territory as its own, and it will stay there. So if it's like around your bed and you chase it away, it's not like it's going to run away from the bed. It's just going to stay here, and then during the night it's going to come out and crawl all over you, you know. So, or if they're on the wall, they'll just stay on the wall and just sort of roam around all the time. So they're very distracting. So you end up doing battle with those cockroaches because, yeah, if it's on your bed, you don't really want to sleep with the creatures. So I end up hunting them down and killing them, and it becomes a part of your daily routine. So I'm kind of, I'm saying, I'm sort of glad that that hotel was full and I did not end up in one of their rooms, and I ended up here instead. And I got here in a fairly unusual way. A friend of mine drove me here, so I didn't ride my bike here. I have my bike, it's right here. I can almost reach out and touch it beside my bed. I have my bike here, but I didn't ride from Pekanbaru to here. I considered doing that, but with all the circumstances and the offer of a lift to come here, it made a lot of sense to accept that offer. So I came here 2 days ago, left from Pekanbaru pretty late in the day. I don't think we left until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3:15, something like that. And then there's a toll highway. Like when I rode my bike from here into Sumatra, I followed the small road. And if you look on Google Maps, it's kind of funny because the road I took just goes like this, you know, just curving, and it just goes up and down, constantly climbing, going down. Not huge hills, but it's a constant up and down motion. But there's also a brand new express highway because they have the docks here. So it's a like in terms of the local economy and the finance of this area, it's a very important town for the oil industry, in particular palm oil industry. There's a lot of shipping in and out of Dumai. So they built this big brand new highway from Pekanbaru all the way to here. It's a toll road, you know, you have to pay to get on it, but it's like a super highway, and you can basically, you know, peg your car at whatever speed you want to go at, you know, 100+ kilometers an hour, and just zoom. And and the weird thing is it's perfectly straight and perfectly flat. So right beside it, you've got the old local road is going like a roller coaster, and then right beside it is this perfectly flat superhighway. But it's kind of going through the same area, so I don't know how this highway can be so flat while the small secondary road is, you know, up and down. But oddly enough, in my experience, the trucks still take the old road. So in fact, there are a lot more trucks on the old road than on the highway. And I assume the superhighway was built for ease of access for all these giant trucks. But as far as I can tell, the trucks don't take the highway. Cars do. But the trucks are still on the old road. So if I was riding my bike here, I would have been sharing it with all of those, you know, huge, somewhat dangerous trucks. So, but anyway, we left after 3 in the afternoon. Then we got here 6 o'clock, maybe something like that. And my friend who drove me here basically just dropped me off. We'd spent the whole day together. We'd spent several days together before that. So by the time we got here, I think he was happy to pop open the rear hatch of his SUV, and I just pulled out my bike. And so my bike was all in pieces. I had to remove the fenders, remove the racks, remove the wheels, lower the seat, and, you know, make it small enough, remove the pedals, get it as small and compact as possible to, you know, to put into the back of his SUV. So I was taking all the pieces out, and I just carried them into the room. And once I was unloaded, yeah, my friend was ready just to turn around and, you know, go back to Pekanbaru. So I thanked him for all his help, and he turned around and hit the road. And I spent the evening. It's kind of weird how that happens. I've noticed this. Maybe it's only my psychology, but maybe it's a human thing, let's say you have a task, you need to do something, clean the bathroom, and you don't want to do it. It feels like a big job, and you're just procrastinating. It's like, I don't want to clean the bathroom, or do laundry. It's like, I don't want to do laundry. Or as in my case, put my bike together. It was going to be a relatively big job. You know, it should be simple, but I knew it was going to end up taking time and effort. And I was sort of looking at the bike in pieces all over this room and thinking, I'll do it tomorrow. But in the morning, the very first thing I had to do was go to the ferry company offices to buy my ticket for the ferry. And I wanted to get that done right away. So I didn't want to delay. So I really wanted to be able to wake up in the morning and just go. So when I first arrived here, my friend dropped me off and he left. I felt like I should take the time to put my bike together now so that it's ready in the morning. I don't have to, I don't want to sit around here for 2 hours in the morning putting my bike together, and then it's going to be late in the day by the time I finally can go to the ferry company. But at the same time, I was looking at the job. It's like, I was so tired. We got here a lot later than I expected. Like arriving here at 6, I was just exhausted. The whole day was over, and the last thing I wanted to do was, get all dirty and greasy and put my bike together. I just wanted to make a cup of coffee and relax. So I didn't want to do the work. The job seemed too big. But then what I did, what was the very first thing I did? I was looking at the bike and I was thinking, actually, how does the fenders that I have on the bike, I think it was the fender, is relatively new. So I was wondering, how does that attach again? So I picked up the fender, and then I was sort of like putting it into place, and I thought, yeah, how does that work again? Oh yeah, this bolt here. So I grabbed my Allen wrench, loosened the bolt, put that into place to put the fender in, and then I thought, oh yeah, okay, now it hooks over here, and then I put that bolt in, and that bolt in, and one part had to be held in place with zip ties. So I got out a couple of zip ties, and okay, I put the fender in place. And then the next thing I knew, I was working on the whole bike, and I put the whole thing together. So the key there is, if you have a big job and the whole job seems intimidating and you don't want to do it, it just seems like too much work. If you do just one tiny thing, like just start and tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to do the whole job. All I'll do, I'll just put one fender on. That's all I'm going to do, just put the fender on. But once you start and you put that fender on, well, you put the next fender on, then you put the rack on, then you raise the seat, then you get the pedals out and you put the pedal. Before you know it, you've actually done the whole job. And you trick yourself by doing just one piece of it. And I've noticed that in my life all the time. I started with the example of cleaning a bathroom. It's like, I don't want to bother. It's too big a job. But then you go in there, and all you do is take a sponge, put some soap on it, and rinse out the sink. Just clean the sink, get it nice and clean. Before you know it, you've cleaned the whole bathroom. Because somehow doing that one little piece of the job gets you into the rhythm, and suddenly cleaning the whole bathroom doesn't seem like such a large chore anymore. So the key is to trick yourself with a big job by doing just one tiny piece of it, and then somehow that triggers something in your brain, and once you do that one little piece, then you sort of just move on to the rest of it, and before you know it, you've done the whole job. So that basically is what happened with my bike. I wasn't going to put it together, but the next thing I knew, it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was finishing up, and I had the whole bike assembled and ready to go. Yeah, and there it is, over there, my bike. Yeah, very excited about that. I really missed it because I haven't been riding it very much at all. I spent a lot of time in the village near Bukitingi, and I rode the bike in and out of the city and sort of in the countryside around the village. But then I rented a scooter for over a month, so the bike has sort of gone unused, and I'm kind of glad to have it an active part of my life again. I was kind of missing it, so I was very happy about that. So with my bike assembled, first thing in the morning, I could go down to the offices. The company is called Indomal Fast Ferry, or actually I don't know how they pronounce it, to be honest, because it's a combination of Indonesia and Malaysia. So Indomal Fast Ferry. I don't know if there are any other companies that run boats between Sumatra and Malaysia and Singapore. I don't know if they exist or not. This is the only one that I'm aware of. And I know where their offices are. I'd already reserved my ticket online, so I booked a seat on the ferry, but I wasn't able to pay for the ticket. So it's a bit like going to an airport and taking a plane, because it's an international boat, so you actually have to go check in advance, and then you get a boarding pass for the boat, which is also your ticket, basically. So that's what I had to do. I had a reservation, but I hadn't paid for it yet, so I was going to hop on my bike. It's about 3-4 kilometers away from my hotel, the offices for Indomal Fast Ferry. So that was the first thing I was going to do in the morning, and then I did something really funny, which again, I suppose it's a real boring, trivial story. My life is made up of trivia, I believe. But at the same time, it points to a human nature trick as well. Because I think we do so many things on autopilot. Like, we have muscle memory built into our body for so many things. Like, if you're living in an apartment and then you have a routine where every day you walk out of your apartment, close the door, get in your car, and drive to work. So many of those things you do, you don't even remember doing them because you do them on autopilot. I'm talking about, the key, locking the door as you leave, turning out the lights, where you put the key in your pocket, getting into the car, starting the car. So many of these things, you get to work and you've done all these little things, but if I challenged you, you probably couldn't actually remember doing any of those things because your body, you've done it so many times, you just do it instinctively. And if you make a mistake in life, it's often because you changed your routine and then your muscle memory hasn't worked that time. So I find in my case, I'm often traveling using different modes of travel. And lately there's been a lot of them. So, I've got cycling, and you pack in a certain way when you're on the bike. And then I've got walking around, and you pack in one way for walking around. I've been flying in and out of Malaysia. You pack a different way when you're taking a flight and going to the airport. And then I had the scooter, so you pack in a different way for when you're riding a scooter. And I've been given lifts by my friend who would then, drive me somewhere. So, and you pack differently for all of those situations. And on the scooter and walking around, I've been using a knapsack, just a small Osprey knapsack. It's the most convenient thing to use. And that's where I've had all of my day-to-day essential things. I put my GoPros in there, my passport, everything I need during the day I put into that little Osprey and wear it on my back as a knapsack. But now I'm suddenly on the bicycle, and normally I would switch over to a pannier bag because the pannier bag has metal hooks on it, and you hook it onto the rack on your bike. I don't put anything on my back because it's really uncomfortable on a bike, and your back is hot and sweaty because the bag is pressing down on your back. And so I switch over to a pannier bag. But I was in a hurry. I just wanted to go. So I didn't want to bother switching over from the knapsack to the pannier bag because I'd have to get the pannier bag ready. I haven't used it for a while. So I'd have to take everything that I normally bring with me every day, pens and notebooks and my passport and this and that, plus gather together my bike tools in case I get a flat tire. And I wanted to bring my full toolkit with me because I had rebuilt the bike and maybe I made a mistake or something wasn't tightened properly. So I wanted to bring all my tools with me as I rode to the ferry office. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I just didn't want to bother switching over from the knapsack to the pannier bag. So I thought, okay, I'll just throw my tools into the knapsack. And yesterday, even though I was riding the bike, I was going to use my knapsack. instead of the pannier bag. So I made that decision, and then I was all set to go, got everything ready, packed up everything, and then I opened the door to my hotel room, rolled the bike outside, locked the door behind me. You know, I'm looking at Google Maps, how do I get there, what route am I going to follow? And you know, riding a bike here in Indonesia is never easy. It's a challenge. The heat, the level of traffic is pretty crazy. The road conditions are pretty rough. And then the intersections are kind of crazy, navigating the intersections. And I navigated all of that. I rode, like I said, 3 or 4 kilometers. I got to the Indomal Ferry office building. And just as I was riding up to the front of the building, it's like, oh, for Pete's sake, no knapsack. I left it behind. And I didn't have a pannier bag. I hadn't brought anything with me. And I needed my passport in particular because, yeah, to get my ticket and to check in for my ferry, I'm gonna need my passport. It was just so funny because I never noticed that I left my knapsack behind, because when I'm riding the bike, I never wear a knapsack. You see what I mean? I have no muscle memory for the feeling of having a knapsack on my back or putting on the knapsack and then getting on the bike. I don't do that normally. So I never noticed that the knapsack was absent because I never have the feeling of a knapsack. So the fact that there was no knapsack there, it didn't bother me. And I never thought about it directly, but I think, you know, my body, my muscle memory and my brain at a subconscious level was just assuming, okay, I'm on the bike, therefore I must have a pannier bag on the bike. And that's where all my stuff is. So I rode all the way there. And even though I'd spent the whole morning getting my knapsack ready, when it came time to exit the room, I just left it. It was just sitting on the floor here beside my bed. I never actually picked it up and put it on because I don't ever do that when I'm riding the bike. So my muscle memory failed me completely. And yeah, I rode all the way there, and I got there and went, oh, for Pete's sake. And I laughed, which I don't know if I have very many strengths in life. I don't think I have very many. But one of my strengths, I think, is I'm fairly good-natured about stuff. Like when I make a big mistake, I don't explode, I don't get angry, I don't get upset. It's not like I'm cursing and swearing. Everything like that just strikes me as funny. So there I am, you know, riding that whole way to Indomal fast ferry, and I'm pulling up to their, you know, pulling right up to their building, and it was just like, oh, I forgot to bring my knapsack. And without even thinking about it, I just turned around and rode back here and opened the door to the hotel room. You know, the lights were out, so the room was dark. And then I turned on the light. Yeah, there's my knapsack just sitting on the floor. You know, I put it there, I got it ready, and then I just walked out the door and didn't bring it with me. Pretty funny. Anyway, so I went back. I had my knapsack. No, actually I didn't do that because I realized, okay, I made a mistake, so take the time to switch. So this time, before I left again, I made the switch and I took all of my gear, because I like pockets, I like compartmentalizing everything, and that's one of the reasons I didn't switch over to the pannier bag, because it's a little bit of a job. But this time I thought, okay, let's not make this same mistake. And I took the time, I sat down here on the bed, and then I moved all my gear over from the knapsack to my pannier bag and figured out, you know, what I put in each pocket and how I organize everything. And this time when I went back, I had the pannier bag and I clicked it into place as I normally do on the bicycle. And everything worked this time. So I went back there, and getting my ticket was no problem. I had a nice little office there. There's nobody there except me and 3 or 4 women behind the counter sitting at desks with computers and things. And I just had to give them my passport, and they could look on their computer and, oh, okay, you've reserved a seat on this ferry on this date at this time. And I had to pay for it. It was 650,000 rupiah. And it actually is going to cost more than that because they told me that there's a 50,000 rupiah tax at the dock. I didn't ask what the tax was for. There's always taxes. There's taxes and fees. You just come to expect that. So I says, okay. So I paid them the 650,000, but then they said, okay, at the dock, you have to pay another 50,000. So be prepared for that. And I told them I had, a bicycle, and they says, well, all your luggage will be weighed at the dock, and then you pay. You pay a set fee for the bicycle, and then you pay for the weight of your luggage. And I remember when I came from Malaysia to here, it was a significant amount of money because my trailer and all of my gears is pretty heavy once you put it all together. It's more than the average amount of luggage that a person would carry. So it's pretty heavy. And in the end, I think for a normal person, once you add up the price of the ferry, the taxes, the fees, the luggage, and the fact that the ferry only takes you to the coast, I think for the average person, flying is a better deal. But you would think taking a boat would be cheaper, and I think in the past it was cheaper, but it's gotten more and more expensive for some reason. And now, by the time you add everything together, and you have budget airlines that they're competing with, a flight is almost the same price as taking the ferry. So I think for most people who are, just want a simple, fast way of getting somewhere, I think flying in and out of Sumatra would be easier than taking the ferry. Because even if you come here by ferry, now you're in Dumai, and nobody really wants to be in Dumai. They want to go to Bukit Tinggi, to Padang, to Lake Toba, Medan, So they're basically going to be traveling on. But if they flew, they could fly directly into Medan, directly into Padang, They don't have to bother with a long overland journey. So I think for most people, flying would make more sense economically and just logistically. But if you want the fun of taking a boat, enter a more unusual way, travel a bit more, in a more interesting fashion, I think the ferry is a good way to go. So as far as I know, I'm all set to go. All I need to do today is pack up for the ferry. As I just mentioned, you have to pack a different way for each form of transportation. And now today I'm going to have to at least think it through. It's like, okay, what do I put in my trailer? What do I put in my pannier bags? What do I carry with me onto the boat itself? And you have to figure out, technically or theoretically, you should bring with you everything of value. You don't want to put valuable things into a checked bag ever, whether it's on an airplane or a train or a boat. But these days, we all travel with so many valuables. If you put all your valuables in one bag, it's a pretty heavy bag. So to be honest, I'll probably leave my laptop in my trailer. It's actually more protected in the trailer than it would be in my knapsack. And then I put a little lock on my trailer, and it's not the best move. The laptop is so important to me that I should have it with me at all times. But by the time I put laptop and camera gear into a small knapsack, it's like, such a heavy thing to carry around. I don't like to do that. So I'll probably wrap it and wrap it and wrap it, and as I normally do, and because I normally put it in the trailer. Like if I was cycling, I would have the laptop in the trailer, not in a pannier bag even, because even on the pannier bag, it's like bouncing up and down and shaking. The trailer is actually more stable than anything else I have. So yeah, I just have to spend some time today packing and figuring these things out, and then tomorrow morning head down to the dock. And then I'll be in Malaysia. Yeah, so that is what is happening over here. I haven't been shooting any video lately just because I wouldn't have the time to edit it anyway. So the whole journey from, well, basically from the village, from Bukit Tinggi till here, I haven't shot any video at all. I've talked about my experiences in these behind the scenes videos, but there's no official Planet Doug video for any of those experiences to go along with it. And then tomorrow when I take the ferry, I suppose I will break out a camera or two and record that journey. But I think what I'm going to do is something a bit different. I don't want to treat it like it's such a big event. I mean, when I took the first ferry from Malaysia, from Port Dickson to Dumai, it was a pretty big deal for me. It was the beginning of this trip, and I had the 360 camera, and my idea was to get on the boat, and then I had 2 selfie sticks, or a selfie stick on top of a long tripod, you know, to make it as long as possible so I can take the 360 camera and take a lot of video on the boat. And I had ideas for, anyway, I turned it into a big video project, at least as big as a video project gets for me. But on this return journey, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't want to turn it into a big project. So what I might do is just take a GoPro, put it on a little hand grip, and then shoot little segments here and there, and then just sort of stick all that together just to record the most important moments of the trip, you know, leaving the hotel, arriving at the dock, getting on the boat, and, you know, just a few minutes here and there, and end up with a video record of the trip. But I'm not going to try and, you know, document the whole thing as I might do normally. Again, because I just won't have the time to edit that much video anyway. So that's my plan for tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do a full-on video, you know, record of the whole journey. If I shoot any video at all, it's just going to be little clips here and there. But we'll see. It's similar to what I was talking about with putting the bike together or cleaning the bathroom. Like, recording an entire day on video seems like a big undertaking. And then the night before, the day before, I might think, I can't be bothered. I'm just going to do a very simple thing. But then once you start shooting video, you know, you got the camera running, and then instincts kick in, muscle memory, you know, and then suddenly you're just filming everything, and I'm talking as I'm riding the bike. So I've got 20 minutes of video of me just riding to the dock, and, you know, it ends up being a lot more video than I thought. But we'll see. I'll try to control myself tomorrow and not shoot as much video as I normally do. See how that turns out. And yeah, not a whole lot else to talk about in terms of traveling and going back to Malaysia and Planet Doug sort of stuff. But of course, there's always the parade of trivia. I think I came up with a name for this in a different video, but I can't remember what I called it. But I always seem to have some little thing, some little quirk to talk about. That just, it's me and the world, you know. Kind of a curb your enthusiasm, Larry David perspective on life in general. And my main thing from yesterday centers on Kentucky Fried Chicken. Because here, yeah, I just thought I ate, where did I had kind of a brunch at a I Am Bakso place. Actually, maybe the parade of trivia can start there. Because, yeah, I'm a big fan of simple meals. You know, I Am Bakso is like one of my favorite little dishes to have. And I knew of a couple of restaurants here that serve a good I Am Bakso. But I also knew they wouldn't be open yet. Nothing ever opens until 3 in the afternoon. I was watching a video from some new YouTubers that I discovered. Well, I didn't discover them. Daryl from Wander Eats, he discovered them. It's interesting. YouTubers. It's a family, husband and wife and a young daughter, originally from Bangladesh, and then they immigrated to Australia, and now they're traveling, and they're currently in Malaysia, which is how Daryl became aware of them, and then through Daryl, I became aware of them. And so I was watching some of their videos from Malaysia. I'm always interested in how YouTubers present Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur in particular, and their first impressions of that city. And the one thing that they talked about in one of their videos, you know, they wanted to go have breakfast. So, you know, they were in their hotel, wherever they were, and they woke up in the morning and they're going to go out into KL and start exploring and get some good food. And then the first thing they said was, KL is not a morning city, it's a night city. Because wherever they were, wherever they went, they ran into what I always run into, is that everything was closed. It's like, okay, there's all these restaurants, and none of them were open. Like, you have to know which restaurants are the breakfast restaurants, because restaurants in general just don't open until late afternoon, and I find that's often the case here too. At least that always seems to happen to me. But anyway, all my Me-I-Am Bakso places were closed. I couldn't go to them. But then I'm riding back up the main road to come here, and I remember there was a new like Me-I-Am Bakso place that I had never been to before. It was a big one, and I saw it on Google Maps, and then I saw it as I rode by, and they said it opened at 11. So I thought, oh, I'll hop off, I'll go here, right? So I show up at this place, and it's open, doors are open, you know, there's staff in there, everything's ready to go, and I walk up to the entrance hesitantly, because I always do these things apologetically, because I'm often going into restaurants, sitting down at a table waiting or something, and then they come over and tell me, oh, we're not open yet. They open the doors and make it look like it's open, and yet they're not actually open. That happens all the time. So I go in hesitantly, and I'm like, okay, it's okay, you're open, I can, you know. And they look at me like I'm out of my mind. So yeah, we're open, doors, you know. If you didn't think we're open, why are you coming in? And anyway. So I go sit down, and then they have a big menu on the wall right beside me, and I'm all excited because I'm gonna have Me-I-Am Bakso. And then the woman comes up and says, well, you know, what would you like? And I'm like, Me-I-Am Bakso, please. And then she went off, and then she came back to my table and said, sorry, like, we don't have any Me-I-Am Bakso, you know? And I'm like, oh, come on. It's a Me-I-Am Bakso restaurant. That's what the whole restaurant is about. And there it is. It's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the menu. Different variations of, you know, noodles and bakso. And she says, no, well, we don't have any. It's like, oh, come on. That happens to me all the time. So I ordered something else, and then I realized I was quite hungry. And I was looking at their menu, and they had something called chicken steak. And I thought, you know, a nice filling chicken steak, that would be cool. So when the server brought, I ordered iced tea, and then when she brought the iced tea, I stopped her and I pointed at the menu and said, like, chicken steak. I think I'd like to have one of those as well, you know. So she went away, and then she came back and said, we don't have any chicken steak. Like, oh, for Pete's sake. That happens to me all the time. I always make this joke that these menus are always so useless. I don't know why they have a huge menu of everything that they can make for you, because what I always have to do is I have to go through the menu and order item after item after item, and each time they tell me they don't have that, they don't have that, they don't have that, and I finally get to something that they actually have. So I always want to say to them, it's like, why don't we reverse that? Like, instead of making me go through this entire long list of things you don't have, why don't you just every day put together a list of the things you do have, and I can order from that list? Like, why do we have to go through this adventure hunt, you know, as I try to figure out what it is you can actually make today? Anyway, that always strikes me as funny. But that wasn't the main parade of trivia I wanted to talk about, because later in the afternoon, I actually went to Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is unusual for me to do. It's a bit of a treat, something like that. It would be much more expensive than a regular meal here, like if you go to an Indonesian normal restaurant. Kentucky Fried Chicken is a bit of a luxury. It's a special occasion to go to a place like that. And there's one not far away from here. So I thought, you know, that'll be nice and simple, easy. I looked at the photos online. It was inside a shopping mall. It's going to be air conditioned. I thought, yeah, let's do that. Let's just keep things simple. I don't want to be sitting outside and sweating to death and going through all the mystery menu stuff, trying to figure out what it is they can make. So I go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, and my experience there was far, far worse than the Me-I-Am Bakso place. Mainly because, well, 2 reasons. Their menu was unbelievably complicated. I could not figure out the menu to begin with. And number 2, there was no menu. Like, it's not like there was a signboard that listed the things you can order. What they had was a giant digital screen, like a 100-inch television basically, or probably bigger than that, filled the entire wall behind the counter. A huge digital readout showing, you know, the things you can order. But it was bewildering because it kept changing. Like, I went in there thinking, okay, Kentucky Fried Chicken. How many pieces of chicken do you want? How many orders of French fries? And do you want a small, medium, or large Coke? That's Kentucky Fried Chicken. Chicken, fries, or rice, and Coke. So I'm looking for the menu where I can just order some food, but every single thing was some kind of a crazy special. And every time a special would pop up on the screen, it would be on there for just a few seconds. Before I could even read what the special was, it disappeared again and replaced with something else. The screen was just like flashing, changing. It just went around in a loop, this crazy pattern of menu items, specials, deals, going up all over the place. And I couldn't make heads or tails out of any of it. And when there was something that looked vaguely interesting, it's like, oh, there's a set that I think I can work with that, and then it's gone again. So, oh, what was it called again? How do? And when you get up to the front of the line, you can't point at anything. It's not like there's a menu where you could say, okay, I would like set A, and point at it. And set A is, 2 pieces of chicken, large fries, large Coke. Set A. And you're done. That's what I wanted, but they had nothing like that, and I couldn't make any sense out of this flashing display that was coming at me. They had a little bit of a laminated card on the counter, and I thought, oh, here's something, here's the actual menu, and I pick it up, and it was just more special deals, where one deal you could get like you got a CD with it, you pay extra and you get a CD of something, some music, I assume. It's like, well, I don't, what do I do? I have no idea what to order, how to order. It was so confusing. Anyway, that was my parade of trivia, and eventually I kind of gave up, and I just went up to the woman at the counter, and she spoke a little bit of English, so that took some of the difficulty away. And I thought, okay, I can use some English, and I didn't really know what to order because I couldn't find any sort of a set. So I just started listing things. Okay, I want 1 piece of chicken, and 1 this, and 1 that. And then she kept saying, like, baskets. So you want a basket. How many baskets? And I'm like, basket. What's a basket? I kept asking her, like, what is a basket? And she's, well, do you want a basket? I'm like, 1 basket. And I'm like, I need more. Like, I don't know what you're asking me. Like, I just want chicken and French fries and a Coke. I don't know what these baskets are of which you speak. But I could not get her off that track. She needed to know about baskets. And finally I said, sure, I'll have a basket. And she said, 1? I'm like, yeah, 1 basket. I was like, I have no idea what I was going to get. And then I guess it was also really weird too, so much confusion. I should not be allowed out into the world on my own. I just don't know how to handle anything. But at Kentucky Fried Chicken these days, they have crispy chicken and then original recipe. And I made the mistake one time of getting the crispy chicken, thinking, because everybody was getting crispy. It was like crispy. All the chicken looked like crispy. It seemed like it was the only option. But I didn't really like it because it's like an inch and a half of fried batter and dough all wrapped around the outside of the chicken. I just didn't really like it. I just want old-fashioned Kentucky Fried Chicken. And then I said to the woman, because they did say OR everywhere, and I figured out, that's original recipe. So I was trying to tell her, like, original recipe. Crispy, no crispy, original recipe. But then on the top layer of the chicken display, she kept pointing at that, which is all the crispy, like big, bulky, battered, deep fried stuff. And I says, no crispy, original recipe. And she pointed down below it, and there was these little things that, like, just little things. It wasn't like big pieces of chicken. And she says, oh, like original. And I'm like, well, no, not that. I mean, I don't know what those little pucks are. I don't know. I want chicken, but you have it all over your signs here, all over the menus, like original recipe. She says, oh, so you want original? I said, yes, original. She says, these, and she's pointing to these little pucks. And I think, well, okay. No, I don't want those, so I guess I want crispy. So yeah, I'll go for the crispy, right? And anyway, and then she told me it's going to be, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. I don't know why. My order, I guess, was very complicated because I wasn't ordering one of these sets that comes with a CD. I was just ordering a la carte, I guess. And it ended up being a lot more expensive because I guess I was ordering each piece individually because I couldn't find a set anywhere. And then they had to assemble it themselves. Anyway, it was going to take a long time, so I'm sitting there. And it was one of these family-friendly places, so they had a play area in the corner. And I think parents go there in particular because they can cut their kids free. You know, it's like, okay, we're going to sit here. You kids, go play. And it was very popular. This was a Sunday yesterday, so a lot of people, I guess, had the day off. And the kid noise was deafening. Just the screaming and the yelling from that play area, just filled with kids screaming at the tops of their lungs. I just about went out of my mind. And yeah, so it was not, I was thinking about going to Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's okay, this is going to be comfortable, big, filling food, more expensive, but I'm willing to pay the premium, the Kentucky Fried Chicken premium to get this nicer experience. And it was just awful from beginning to end. It was so dirty too. Tables were all dirty. I had to clean my own table. The garbage area was just, ooh, you didn't want to go anywhere near it. Yeah, it was not really what I was expecting at all. And then when the food finally came, I got this sad, sad little envelope with some French fries in it. And the guy said, okay, 1 basket. And he put this little envelope of weird looking French fries. And I guess that was the basket. I guess French fries are ordered by the basket. I don't know why they call them baskets. I did see some big kind of basket things go by on the digital display, but none of them had French fries in them. But he says, okay, this is your basket. Because the guy brought a tray, you know, to my table eventually. He said, okay, here's your basket. I said, well, anyway. But what I really wanted was large everything, like large Coke. Just give me that big, big Coke. But for some reason, I wasn't able to get a large. All I got was this little cup. Okay, that's empty. This sad little envelope of French fries, a basket of French fries. It's like, okay, I had 2 of those. Okay, that's empty now. Anyway, it was a very, very negative experience. If the CEO of Kentucky Fried Chicken Indonesia is out there listening, we foreigners, we need more help. We're too dumb. I need a menu. Your whole digital flashing, changing display couldn't make any sense out of it. So that was one of my big adventures yesterday after I got my ferry ticket settled. Yeah, Planet Doug, as I said, I shouldn't be allowed out on my own. I need a guide. You know, I need someone to walk me through these modern things like going to Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's too much for me. I get overwhelmed, it appears. Well, technology update. Not a lot to say, except I may have made a mistake. I haven't quite decided yet, but I developed this whole system of mounting a GoPro on my bicycle with a broomstick. And that allowed me to mount the GoPro high enough and far enough ahead of me to get a nice wide shot when the camera is pointing back towards me as I'm riding the bike. But I knew I was going to be putting my bike in the trailer onto this ferry, and the broomstick is kind of awkward. Like you can't really put it in the trailer. It sticks out the back, you know, and then I wouldn't be able to lock the zipper, and I wasn't sure if there was a way to tie it to the bicycle with straps and ropes, and I didn't think I would really need it that much, so I thought, I'll just leave it behind. I just didn't want to, I was packing up in the village, and packing up was really complicated, and I was kind of stressed out. The whole situation was stressing me out. I was looking at that broomstick, and I knew I wasn't going to be riding the bike back to Dumai, so I thought I don't need to mount the GoPro on the bike, so I'll just leave it behind. And then if I want to do this again while here in Dumai, I can just buy another broomstick, or I can wait until I'm in Malaysia. If I'm riding my bike at all, I can just get another stick. So now that I'm here though, to be honest, I kind of regret that I did that, because shopping takes up more time than you would think, and to go off looking for the right size and length type of broomstick or stick of any kind. But anyway, So I was thinking about how to mount the GoPro on my bike without a broomstick, and I kind of worked out a system. I haven't tested it yet, but I might try to mount the GoPro on my bicycle, but not worry so much about proper placement. So I developed a system using the GoPro 3-way mount on the bike as well, and it won't be as far away and as high as I'd like, but I don't know. I watch a lot of travel videos from people on bicycles and scooters, and they all mount their GoPros right on the handlebars and have them pointing straight up their nose, you know, like their face fills the whole screen. And it's a very awkward positioning, awkward angle. I find it kind of unpleasant, but everybody does that. And you scan the comments, nobody complains about it. Like nobody ever says in the comments, oh, why did you put your GoPro so low on the handlebars? We can't see anything and we're pointing straight up into the air. And like no one ever says anything negative. So I think, well, so maybe it doesn't matter. So if I'm going to mount a GoPro on the bike, I'll just stick it on the handlebars like everybody else and get the same weird perspective, you know? Anyway, but I have figured out this way to kind of get a balance between far enough and high enough. It might be, I haven't tested it yet, but that might work out. And putting my bike together, that's technology too. Everything seemed to go back together more or less okay. Yeah, don't have any issues with that. Bike seems okay. Hopefully it's not pouring rain tomorrow morning. But yeah, there's always little technology problems. Just now I had to change the battery in my Olympus, and I could see that the battery was losing power. It didn't go dead. The battery I was using was just getting empty. So I thought I might as well, instead of waiting for it to go dead, I'll just change the battery right now. But the weird thing that now happens with this camera is if you pull out the battery, and then it takes you like 5 seconds even to put in the new battery, in that 5 seconds, the camera loses the memory. Like you have to put in the date and the time, right, into the camera. And every single time I remove the battery, it resets to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So every time I change the battery, I have to reset the date and the time, which I find kind of annoying. You'd think somehow there would be a system in the camera that would remember all these settings even when the battery has been removed. I can understand if the battery has been out of the camera for 3 months, then all this residual energy that's maintaining the memory would eventually die as well, and you lose all your settings. But somehow with this camera, like even no matter how fast you do it, pull out the battery, put in the new one, close the door, wipes out the memory every time. So it needs a battery at all times in order to maintain stuff like that. It's kind of weird. I haven't quite figured that out. And the little door, there's a little lever that holds the battery door closed. It just popped off for some reason. So every time I take the battery out now, this little lever just flies around the room. Yeah, speaking of things flying around the room, I don't know if anyone else, I've never heard anyone in the GoPro world talk about this, but this happens to me all the time. That when you remove the memory card from the GoPro, it's difficult to do it because it's recessed inside the battery compartment and it's right beside the battery compartment. So really what you need to do is pull out the battery, and then you can kind of get your finger into the compartment, and if you have a good long thumbnail or something, you can push in on the memory card and then release it. You know, there's a spring holding it in place. But sometimes, yeah, you don't want to remove the battery, so you just sort of leave the battery in. And I'll be sitting in a room like this quite often, and I figure, oh, I'll just take out the memory card, I'll leave the battery in place. But when you do that, it's really awkward, and you're pushing in with your thumbnail, but because it's such an awkward position, your thumbnail will slide off the memory card, and then the spring will release, and then your memory card just goes bing. Like the spring is really powerful, and if you push in and release the catch and then just sort of let go, the spring will send your memory card all the way across the room. It just goes flying. And it's such a tiny, light thing, you don't know where it lands. And this happens to me quite often if I'm not being careful. You know, you're trying to take the battery out and then it's like, bing! It's like, whoa, where did it go? Where did it go? And you're like, you're trying to hear, you know, did it land over here? Did it land over here? And then you're searching the whole room, you know, trying to find that memory card. Happens to me frequently, but I've never heard anyone else talk about the GoPro, you know, what do you call that? The GoPro memory card rocket ship or slingshot. Yeah, it's like a slingshot, just like ping, and it just like a spring letting go, and it just flies across the room, and you have no idea where the thing landed because it's so small and so light, you know. You really have to be careful because you can lose a memory card really easily that way. I've never actually lost one that way. I eventually find all of them, but it takes time, you know. It's like, bing! It's like, where did it go? Yeah, technology, life of technology. Quick pop culture update. I'm still watching the second season of Foundation, and in a previous video I was criticizing the second season because it lost a lot of the narrative drive of the first season. It's like the whole, like, I'm working my way through all the episodes of season 2, and it just feels like the story has stalled. Like, I don't know, it's just like moving very slowly. Nothing is happening. There don't seem to be any stakes. I'm not engaged with the episodes. I'm still enjoying them because of the production value and the characters and the world building, but it does seem to be going very slowly, and a lot of the situations, I don't understand the stakes. I think if you read the books, maybe it'll give you a lot more of the background information, but there's certain characters in season 2. Particularly I won't talk about the details, but there's a collection of planets, or it's not really another empire, but it's a power group, or maybe a world called the Cloud Dominion is involved this year. And somehow the Cloud Dominion has a lot of power, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't get it, why there's such a central power player all of a sudden, because all through season 1 the Empire seemed all powerful. Like the Emperor himself, he can sit on his throne and he puts up like 2 or 3 fingers, and then he just twists them, and then whenever he does that, it's like 8 billion people die. You know, it's like he wants to wipe out a planet. He just sits on his throne and just goes, and then all these ships show up and destroy the entire planet. Like, he has that much power. He wanted to get revenge on this one character, and he set up this incredibly elaborate revenge on this person, and was busy talking to them in a garden, and then he held up 2 fingers and then just went like this, and he says, 800 people just died. You know, like everyone you've ever met, everyone in your family, anyone who's ever even heard of you just died when I did that. He's like, holy crap. Like, he has so much power. His technology is like godlike. And I kind of got used to that idea. But now in season 2, we've got other people showing up, you know, assassination attempts. We've got the Cloud Dominion, who seem very powerful. And I'm wondering, I don't know, I don't have enough background information to really understand the power dynamic, you know, in the Empire. So that's kind of bothered me. But it was more that the story just kind of, I guess that's the story of season 2, but it hasn't really engaged me because I don't really understand the context. And then the story just wasn't moving along. There was a lot of exposition, a lot of characters having to talk about who they are and what they're doing. And anyway, I was kind of not that impressed with season 2. However, I have to backtrack a little bit, because the last 2 episodes that I watched, I think episodes 8 and 9, really kicked into high gear. It was just suddenly, wow, it's like a totally new show. Suddenly the story kicked in again on many, many different levels, and you get a lot of backstory, fascinating ideas, and real stakes, and real things start happening very, 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 very fast. So It took a long time to get there in season 2. As I said, it felt quite slow throughout the first half, and even, you know, even into 2/3. But now that we're in the final third of season 2, yeah, things really took off, and I found myself really interested and really engaged again. So I have a better opinion of season 2 now. I have to backtrack a little bit on my criticisms from before. Yeah, so it does get better. It gets better over time. I also watched a series of shorts, which were really a lot of fun, called I Am Groot. I guess it's from Disney, it's animated, and they remind me of the Pixar shorts. You know, I don't know if they still do them, but Pixar used to put little short movies, little short featurettes in front of their movies, and each one tells a complete story, but it's very endearing, very like high production values in terms of the animation. And I guess they put together 2 seasons of shorts for the Groot character, kind of as a, not a teenager, but like a little toddler, like baby, not quite baby Groot, toddler Groot maybe. And then toddler Groot has all these mini adventures as he's learning about who he is and what his body can do, and he has all these adventures on these spaceships and on these alien worlds, and each one tells a very funny, endearing story of the life of Groot. And they're very short, like 4 minutes each, something like that. And but each one is very good. So I Am Groot is worth watching. And another show, I don't know if I ever mentioned it before, is called Reservation Dogs. It's an American show set on an Indian reservation in the United States, and it follows a group of high school students, like young people on the reservation, and it's a group of friends who have formed kind of a friendship group, but they call themselves the Res Dogs, you know, the Reservation Dogs. And they're on the 3rd season now, so seasons 1 and 2 are already done, and I think right now we're in the middle or towards the end of season 3. And I've watched seasons 1 and 2 before and really liked them. Yeah, I enjoy them a lot. I really like shows that have all the things you want in a good show. You know, good writing, good acting, interesting characters, interesting storyline. But then if it also has a window into a new world, that really is the icing on the cake for me. So this show, Reservation Dogs, gives you a window into, you know, Indian culture, like modern day Indian culture in the United States, reservation culture, the people that live there, how, you know, the jobs they have, the work they do, the family dynamics. And I know, yeah, to be honest, no, I don't really know anything about it. I only know as much about that world as anybody would who grew up in Canada or the United States, which isn't saying much. It's an unknown kind of world. So this show, Reservation Dogs, has all the other things I mentioned: good acting, good characters, good storyline, good production value, but it also keeps me engaged because it gives me a glimpse into the life on the reservation, the culture there, and everything that's going on there. And yeah, just keeps me engaged. So actually I started season 3, but then I found I didn't really remember how we got to that point, so I needed a bit of a refresher. So I just started season 2 all over again, and kind of have been slowly rewatching season 2 to get me up to speed, and then I can start on season 3. So I don't know anything about season 3 yet, the new season, but I just revisited season 2. It was excellent. Yeah, it was excellent. They have, I mean, you're mainly following these young people, the Res Dogs, but they occasionally, the show branches out and gives you little episodes from other people, you know, doing other things, and they are quite interesting. They don't follow the main storyline. The Res Dogs are the main storyline, and all the adults around them have their own stories to tell. You know, the local tribal police, the hospital system there, They have like native Indian conferences that everybody goes to. And then the local ne'er-do-wells, you know, there'd be some local people who are sort of the meth dealers and the local criminal element, you know, and occasionally the show will branch out and tell a story from the point of view of the adults in their world. And I don't enjoy those quite as much because I want to follow the res dogs, but they're still good. They're still really well done, and I do enjoy them. So Planet Doug recommended Reservation Dogs. Yeah, I like that show as well. And to finish up with one more pop culture thing, it's another animated show. It's not on the same scale as all these other shows, you know, like Foundation and Reservation Dogs. To me, those are big shows worth watching. Mrs. Davis that I talked about before. This is I watched a small animated show called, and I think it's meant for kids. It really does feel like a kid's show, called My Adventures with Superman. So it basically tells the story of Clark Kent, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen. You know, like Jimmy Olsen is the photographer from the Daily Planet, Lois Lane, their star reporter, and then Superman. But it follows them more as teenagers, or maybe not teenagers. They just graduated from university, and they're all interns. So they're interns at the Daily Planet. They're not full reporters yet. They're not journalists. And Superman isn't really Superman yet. He's like Superboy, like even all of his powers haven't kicked in yet. So during season 1, he, you know, every day he might suddenly discover he has a new power, like his X-ray vision kicks in. He didn't even know he could do that. His, you know, super hearing kicks in one day, and he's slowly learning about all his powers, and he's learning mainly about his history. And that's what I found interesting about My Adventures with Superman. I mean, it's fun, it's well done. There's a certain looseness with logic and action and things because it's not meant for an adult audience. It's meant for kids, I think, and kids don't worry that much about the things that I worry about. So it's got a lot of over-the-top stuff that when you stop and think about it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like, okay, that doesn't work that way, you know. But it moves fast, you know, it just sort of doesn't worry too much about being realistic, you know, even for a Superman story. But it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. And it focuses heavily, well, what I was going to say is that it seems to be reimagining Superman's origin story. Because we all know the standard story that I think comes from the comic books. You know, the planet Krypton exploding, his parents putting their baby son into a little spaceship and sending it off to Earth to save his life, and the, you know, the planet Krypton blows up shortly afterwards. We all know that story. And then Superman as a baby is adopted by the Kent family on the farm, and he learns, you know, traditional, good old-fashioned American values because he grew up on a farm. But this one, My Adventures with Superman, I basically throws all of that in the garbage and comes up with an entirely new story about who Superman is, where he came from, and why he's on the planet, you know, what his purpose was. And I found that interesting. So, yeah, it's a completely new story for Superman's origins called My Adventures with Superman. So yeah, actually I recommend it if you're into superhero stuff, if you're into animation. I think it's kind of worth watching. It's fun, goes by really fast, short episodes. You know, it's not a huge time commitment or anything like that. And I liked it from the point of view of telling a new Superman story. It's not the same story that we've heard, you know, 1,000 times already. It's a brand new approach to Superman. So yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. I guess the only thing I don't like about it is what I don't like about all superhero stories, about all Superman, Marvel, everything, that the superheroes are given such huge powers that there's no drama in the real world anymore, right? It's not like Superman can run around stopping pickpockets and stopping bank robbers, because that's not a challenge for him. You know, he's bulletproof, he's, you know, super powerful, super fast, he can fly. You know, he's basically a godlike figure. So you can't really make a show about him stopping normal human criminals. So you got to remove him from normal human life. Because what would be the story every week? You know, there's more bank robbers. He just shows up and says, "Hi there, guys," and just, you know, they can shoot him all they want. It's not going to hurt him, and they can't run away. You know, they can't drive. You know, he can basically defeat all human villains, all human criminals without getting out of bed practically. So it's kind of boring. So in all these shows, all these movies, what they have to do is create super powerful alien villains for them to fight with. So, like, you know, Iron Man has his Iron Man suit. Who's he gonna fight? Well, he fights the bad guy who has his own Iron Man suit. So it's always the same thing. You know, Spider-Man has to fight someone else who has spider powers. Someone has to be as powerful as the superhero in order to make any kind of a conflict. And from a storytelling point of view, that can be a little bit weird. It's sort of like every single time, you know, they have to do that. And then on the one hand, you're asked to be in awe of Superman. It's like, wow, Superman, he has all these amazing superpowers. And okay, I'm in awe of this creature you've created, this superhero. But then suddenly every villain he fights is exactly as strong as he is. Like, Superman has to get beat up. And then throughout the show, you know, you've got Superman, your hero, this all-powerful godlike figure, and he just gets his butt kicked over and over and over again. It's like, come on, Superman. It's like, I thought you were Superman, and yet every single villain you encounter just beats the crap out of you. It's like he starts coming across as really weak. So there's this real conflict in how you feel about the character, because he's being presented as, you know, super strong, super fast, super everything, and then yet he gets defeated every time he fights a bad guy. You know, and it's like, hold it, I thought he was supposed to be so powerful. How come everybody can beat him up? You know, of course he always wins in the end through friendship, through ingenuity, through something. You know, he always wins, but still. It's just kind of a weird thing I find with superhero movies in general. When they get such huge powers, the forces they have to fight against have to become equally huge, and then you lose all of the human interest in the story because it's happening at a level that we can't even relate to anymore, you know, as normal humans, right? All right. I think that is it for now. Gone over the life of Planet Doug, my adventures at Kentucky Fried Chicken, getting to Dumai, putting my bike together, getting the ferry ticket, leaving on the ferry tomorrow morning to go to Malaysia. That should be a bit of an adventure, and a little bit of a pop culture update. And with that, I am going to shut down, get started packing and getting ready for tomorrow. So that's it, and I'll see you in the next video.